This happened 5 years ago. I was 35 and just moved into a rundown apartment building. I lost my job as an aerospace engineer and went through a divorce. I thought it would be a good place to start over. The peeling paint and flickering lights reminded me of my past, but I ignored it. On my first night, I noticed a dusty box in the basement. It was marked research files. I thought it might be interesting, so I took it back to my apartment. It felt like a distraction. But later that night, I heard murmurs coming from the walls. They sounded like whispers, almost like voices. I wasn't sure what to make of it. I tried to brush it off as just old plumbing or the building settling. But the sounds didn't go away. They grew louder, more insistent. I couldn't understand the words, and sometimes it felt like they were right next to me. I felt a chill run down my spine. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination. And the next few days, things got stranger. I started noticing symbols scratched into the walls of my apartment and in the hallways. They looked like some weird language. I thought about showing them to someone, but who would believe me? I felt like I was losing my mind. One evening, I caught a glimpse of something moving outside my window. It was just a shadow, but it made my heart race. I looked again, and there was nothing there. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. My neighbors whispered about strange things happening. They said this building had a history, one tied to old experiments. Some claimed they saw figures at night, while others spoke of hearing cries or laughter that belonged to no one. I listened closely, my stomach knotting up. I wanted to think it was just stress, but something felt off. It felt like we were all being watched, as if something was lingering just out of sight. As the days passed, the whispers became clearer. It felt like they were calling me. I think I started to understand them, or maybe I just wanted to. I couldn't shake the feeling that the box I found was connected to everything. Was it all in my head, or was something sinister at play? I wanted to know, but I also felt terrified. Then one night, I lay in bed and felt a presence in the room. It was cold, and I couldn't breathe. I thought I could see something moving in the shadows. My heart raced. I turned to look, and I swear I heard someone whisper my name. I wasn't alone anymore. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The whisper surrounded me, growing louder. I felt the coldness pressing against my skin. My fingers trembled as I reached for the light switch. But no light came on. Panic washed over me. I realized whatever lived in this building didn't want me to leave. I sat frozen as fear took hold, and I knew I should have never taken that box. The next morning, I woke up in a cold sweat. The remnants of the night clung to me like a terrible dream I couldn't shake off. There was an unsettling heaviness in my chest. I glanced around the dark room, half expecting to see someone standing there. No one was there, but the cold air whispered secrets I couldn't decipher. I desperately needed to clear my mind. I decided to investigate the symbols I had seen. A sense of urgency gripped me, they couldn't be mere graffiti. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the ones I had noticed in the hallway. Maybe I could find out what they meant if I researched them online. As I stepped into the hallway, I noticed something unusual. The walls felt alive, vibrating slightly as if they were breathing. I brushed my finger along the strange scratches, and a growl of warning echoed in my mind. I shook my head, dismissing it as paranoia. I made my way to the basement, compelled by the box again. Maybe it would provide clues about the whispers I had heard. I found a dim light bulb flickering overhead, casting weak shadows across the concrete. The box lay where I left it, almost waiting for me. I hesitated, expecting it to hold secrets or more questions. When I opened it, a musty smell hit me. Inside were stacks of yellowed papers, diagrams, and equipment lists with odd symbols similar to the ones I had found. My heart pounded as I began to sift through them. An image caught my eye. It portrayed a machine that looked like a twisted version of a control panel. I felt an eerie familiarity to it. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, cutting through the silence. It was a message from one of my neighbors. "We need to talk. It's about the building." My stomach churned. Did they know about the whispers? The symbols? Part of me wanted to run, but another part was drawn deeper into this nightmare. Just then, I heard a thumping upstairs. Thud. 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 It was rhythmic and deliberate, echoing through the emptiness. Panic surged through me again. I was terrified to confront whatever was up there. But I couldn't ignore it. I had to know if my neighbors could help. Before I could leave the basement, the lights flickered, and I felt a rush of cold air. The whispers returned, now sharp and insistent. My heart raced as I realized they were no longer just distant sounds, they were forming words, warning me, pleading with me. "Stop it. Don't go up there." The message sank into my bones, frigid and penetrating. Whatever had taken residence in my mind was now screaming at me to turn around. But the noise above continued, and my curiosity fought against my fear. Then everything went dark. The flickering bulb finally shattered, plunging me into an oppressive blackness. I reached for my phone, but before I could turn on the flashlight, something brushed against my arm. A cold, clammy touch that sent a jolt of fear through me. I felt a rush of urgency. I had to make a choice. Either confront the unknown up there or retreat and abandon this nightmare. Before I could decide, a figure emerged from the shadows. I froze. I couldn't breathe. Who or what was in the basement with me? I stared into the darkness, my heart pounding louder than the thuds from above. The figure took a step closer, its movement almost graceful and fluid. I squinted, trying to make out any details, but all I saw was the outline of a person, a silhouette that felt both familiar and foreign. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure stopped, tilting its head as if considering my question. "Help us," it said, the voice soft but tinged with desperation. I blinked, feeling the weight of those words. Help? But help from whom? The whispers I'd heard suddenly surged in my mind again, louder now, almost drowning out my thoughts. "Get out. You don't belong here." I took a step back, instinctively trying to put distance between me and the figure. But it reached out, its hand extending. I felt a powerful pull, an urge to listen, to trust. Yet doubt gnawed at my insides. "Stay away," I shouted, backing up until I hit the wall. There was no way back now. What was that thing? Why did it feel so alive? The figure took another step forward, and I felt a shiver of recognition. It was as if I knew this person, or at least part of who they were. But the memory slipped further away, like a fog rolling in over clarity. Then there was another sound, a loud crash from upstairs, shaking the very foundation of the building. It jolted me from my terror. I glanced to the staircase, torn between running back to the light or staying put. "Don't leave," the figure urged, urgency tinging its voice. "You need to understand. You have to know the truth." Before I could respond, the lights flickered back to life. The pale glow illuminated the basement, but it only revealed more shadows, more questions. The figure stood there, clearer now, and I finally saw its features, a face twisted in anguish, eyes darting with urgency. The symbols from the papers in the box flashed through my mind. They were somehow connected to this person. "I'm not here to hurt you," it insisted. "But you have to listen." The symbols, the ground beneath me trembled, and the entire building felt alive, vibrating intensely. I had to make a decision. I could bolt upstairs, find out what was causing all the chaos, or stay and unravel this enigma. But before I could act, the figure lunged at me. My instincts kicked in, and I stumbled back, my breath hitching. Just then, something shifted behind me. That's when I saw it, a crack in the wall, faint light seeping through. I couldn't ignore it. A new worry wrapped around me. Was there something on the other side? Or was this just another trap? The figure stepped closer again, voice urgent but calm. Don't be afraid. What you find will reveal everything. And then the shadows converged again, distorting the figure's face. I felt a rush of clarity, then confusion. I took a breath, mustering my courage. I needed answers. I needed to know what came next. My heart raced as I moved toward the crack in the wall. Could this lead me to the truth, or would it engulf me completely? I pressed my palm against the cool surface of the wall. The crack pulsed with light, beckoning me closer. I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder at the figure still lingering in the shadows. Its eyes were filled with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Fear, perhaps? But fear of what? I turned back to the crack, swallowing hard. Just a peek, I whispered to myself. My fingers brushed the edges, and as I pushed gently, the wall shifted, revealing a small opening. Anxiety surged in my chest, but I felt an inexplicable need to squeeze through. As I entered the dark space beyond, the light intensified, revealing a long corridor lined with faded paper and strange symbols painted on the walls. Each step echoed, amplifying the sense of isolation. I shut my eyes for a moment, absorbing the whispers merging into a chaotic hum in my mind. Help us. The words repeated, but this time they weren't just from the figure. They drummed against my temples like a warning. I stepped forward again, curiosity battling with fear. Ahead, I spotted a door at the end of the corridor, slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling out. I approached, my heart racing more wildly with every inch I took, then suddenly, the ground shook beneath me. I stumbled, grasping for stability. The sensation unsettled me, threatening to throw me off balance. Heart in my throat, I regained my composure and moved towards the door. To my surprise, it creaked open wider, revealing a small room filled with old equipment, dusty papers, and strange devices I couldn't recognize. In the center of the room was a scanner-like machine, blinking irregularly as if still alive, despite years of neglect. Nearby, an old terminal flickered screen light, casting erratic shadows across the heaps of old files. My instincts told me to run, but my curiosity held me captive. I stepped in, brushing my fingers over the equipment, trying to piece together its purpose. A few papers caught my attention. They were filled with data, charts, and unsettling diagrams. My breath hitched as I recognized the symbols again. I flipped through the pages, heart pounding as I read snippets of experiments from 5 years earlier, tests involving minds, consciousness, and something called the Rift. My pulse quickened. What had they tried to accomplish? Suddenly, a loud noise erupted from the corridor behind me. I whirled around just in time to see the figure from before step into the room, looking more insistent than ever. You found it, it said, its voice urgent. You have to stop them. What do you mean? Who are you? I nearly screamed, overwhelmed by the sense of urgency crashing over me like a wave. Time is running out, it said, eyes darting to the door. You don't have much time before they return. They're coming for what you've discovered. My heart sank. Panic surged. I realized I was in far too deep. I had stumbled into a nightmare of their making, and now there was no going back. I looked toward the exit but caught the figure's eyes again. Tell me what I need to do, I demanded, desperation coloring my words. Before it could answer, a loud thumping echoed through the corridor. Something or someone was racing toward the room. The noise grew louder, an urgent pounding that filled the small room with dread. I felt my heart race, each thump matching the rhythm of my panic. The figure pressed forward, eyes wide with fear. Hide! It hissed, glancing nervously at the door. Without thinking, I dashed to the side, ducking behind a cluttered desk. My breath came in shallow gasps as I peered over the edge, watching the door. The thumping stopped, replaced by the sound of footsteps approaching quick, deliberate. The figure moved closer to the door. Please, don't, it started, but I could barely hear it over the pounding of my heart. Then the door swung open with a violent creak. A tall silhouette filled the doorway, backlit by the corridor's dim light. I could just make out the sharp features of a person dressed in a dark uniform, a subtle insignia gleaming on their chest. My instincts screamed at me to flee. "Search the room," the figure commanded, stepping inside. A chill swept across my skin. It was as if darkness seeped from the person, curling around the edges of the room. The urgency in the figure's voice rang true, but there was nothing I could do from my hiding spot. "Where is it?" the newcomer demanded, scanning the room with piercing eyes. I held my breath, willing myself to disappear. The figure I had encountered before remained frozen, glancing between the door and me. I didn't see anything," it stammered, trying to sound convincing but failing miserably. "A mistake you'll regret," the newcomer replied, stepping further inside. I felt my body tense, frozen in fear. The presence was dominating, and I could feel its intent radiating from across the room. The newcomer approached the old terminal, effortlessly brushing away years of dust. I noticed the way its fingers danced across the screen, and I realized it was trying to access the data I had just discovered. Each keystroke sent waves of anxiety coursing through me. I had to act, but how? "Stop!" I suddenly blurted. The words felt foreign in my mouth, but desperation pushed them out. The reminder of my curiosity and the unseen dangers ahead gave me a tiny sputter of courage. Both figures turned toward me. The newcomer narrowed its eyes, the corners twisting in disbelief. "You shouldn't be here," it said coldly, stepping closer. "You need to get out of this place before it consumes you." "What are you talking about?" I shot back, trying to buy myself time. "What is this place? What are you looking for?" The returning figure shot me a warning look, but I pressed on. "What happened 5 years ago? What's the rift?" The newcomer hesitated, caught off guard by my questions. "That knowledge isn't yours to have," it warned, voice low but sharp. "Leave now, or you'll regret it." Suddenly, an alarm blared through the room, red lights flashing as if the building itself was aware of the storm brewing. My heart dropped. "Run!" the figure yelled at me, panic breaking its facade. Before I could think, I turned and dashed toward the exit, my instincts taking over. Just behind me, I heard the continued argument echoing through the room, mingled with the sirens wailing chaos around us. That's when I saw it, a flicker in the corner of my eye as something shifted from the shadows. Something alive, lurking, watching. I stumbled forward, adrenaline surging as I barely registered what I'd seen. I felt the temperature drop, a shiver running down my spine. There was movement in the dark, something darting across the room. My heart raced, but I couldn't linger on fear. The alarm and the arguing voices pushed me to keep moving. I dashed toward the exit, casting a glance over my shoulder. The figure in the dark uniform was distracted by a flicker of shadows. "What is that?" it called out, voice tinged with irritation. It wasn't just my imagination. Whatever lurked in the corners was real, and it was watching. "Quick! This way!" I heard the voice of the other figure, the one who had tried to warn me, hiss urgently. I hesitated just long enough to see the silhouette of the lurking thing stretch ominously. I felt a pulse of instinct urging me to run. I sprinted toward the direction the figure gestured. My feet pounded against the cold, hard floor. I rounded a corner and skidded to a halt in a narrow corridor. Dull light flickered above as the alarm continued to blare. I looked back. The figure in the dark uniform followed closely, its determination unmistakable. The soft footfalls of something else echoed behind me. "Don't look back!" the warning voice shouted, now echoing closer. I could barely breathe as I pressed forward. The corridor twisted and turned. My senses heightened. I could feel the walls closing in, the air thick with fear. Just ahead, an emergency exit sign glowed dimly. I rushed toward it, but something skittered from the shadows to my left, causing me to stumble and nearly fall that I caught myself against the wall, looking back frantically. The lurking thing had emerged, a small creature with glistening eyes. It was not what I expected. Not a monster, but something more unsettling, a genetic experiment gone wrong, perhaps? It darted forward with unnatural speed, and I felt a surge of terror rush through me that I shot forward again, ignoring the pain in my lungs. I needed to escape. The emergency exit loomed closer, its metal door promising freedom. But behind me, the figure in the uniform was relentless. "Stop!" it shouted, and I could sense its hand reaching for something. Just as I reached for the exit door, I heard a loud crash and the familiar sound of breaking glass behind me. I froze momentarily, balancing on the thin line between curiosity and fear. What had just shattered? I opened the door, and a gust of stale air hit me, carrying the scent of rust and dust. Just as I stepped outside, I caught a glimpse of a dark shape slipping past the fleeing figure behind me. Something wasn't right. I turned, ready to leave all of this behind. But a single thought lingered, clawing at me. The rift. Was that creature a remnant of whatever had happened years ago? Why were they here, looking for it, and why was it watching me? It all felt wrong, and I had a sinking feeling this wasn't over. As I crossed the threshold through the exit, the sirens faded, but the dread didn't. The night air felt heavy with secrets yet to be revealed. I needed answers, but the more I fought for them, the more dangerous things became that I ventured into the unknown, hoping to elude the shadows and the questions that followed me. What were they guarding so viciously? And what really happened 5 years ago? The chill outside was a stark contrast to the chaos I had just escaped. I stepped into the night, my breath visible in the cold air. Every corner felt like it harbored danger, every shadow seemed to pulse with life. I needed to collect myself and focus if I was going to make any sense of what had just happened. That I glanced around, trying to locate the figure that had helped me. But the alley was deserted. Panic clawed at my gut, making it hard to think straight. I turned, scanning the darkened street for any sign of movement, but all I saw were faint outlines of buildings shrouded in darkness. What now? I took a step forward, and the gravel beneath my shoes crunched loudly. Too loudly. Instinctively, I ducked behind a crumbling wall, peering out. My heart raced as I listened intently for any pursuit. I could still hear the distant wailing of the alarms behind me, but it was fading. A series of flashing lights caught my attention further down the street. Police cars? I hesitated, wrestling with the thought of approaching them. Would they help me, or would they see me as a threat? My breath quickened as I felt the weight of my choices bearing down on me. Then, a soft rustle from the darkness brought me back to reality. I turned sharply, scanning the shadows, and that S when I saw it. The same small creature from before, watching me. Its glistening eyes reflected the flickering streetlights, and I felt a surge of dread mixed with curiosity. It inched closer, its movements unnaturally smooth. I edged back, but it seemed intrigued rather than hostile. I knew I shouldn't approach, but something in its gaze compelled me to stay put. What if it had answers? "Hey," I whispered, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Are you?" Suddenly, a sharp noise interrupted us, a shout from behind me. I turned quickly to find a police officer rushing into the alley. My instinct kicked in, and I ducked down, instinctively pulling the creature closer to me. "Hey! Get back!" the officer yelled, aiming a flashlight in my direction. The beam caught the creature, and it recoiled slightly, its eyes wide. "Wait! It's not," I started, but my voice died in my throat as the officer, startled, took a step back, fumbling with his radio. My heart raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. I needed to get out before things escalated further. The creature moved again, brushing against me before darting back into the shadows. The officer's attention shifted to it, his voice trembling. What the hell was that? That question echoed in my mind. What was the creature? What had happened to it and why was it here? And more importantly, did it have something to do with the rift? Just as I contemplated my next move, I caught a glimpse of the officer's flashlight beam scanning the ground toward me. I had a split second to decide. With adrenaline swelling in my veins, I bolted down the alley in the opposite direction, leaving the officer's shouts behind me. But the creature wasn't gone, it was following, small feet making little sound as they scurried through the shadows. I had no idea where I was headed, but I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't shake off this sense that whatever was happening, it was only the beginning. As I fled deeper into the darkness, I felt the weight of lingering questions pressing down around me. What more awaited in the night? I sprinted deeper into the maze of alleyways, my breath coming in sharp, cold bursts. I could still hear the distant sounds of commotion echoing from where I had just fled. Sirens wailed, and voices shouted as panic spread through the streets. I glanced back once, half expecting to see the officer pursuing me, but the shadows swallowed everything. The creature was close, darting silently beside me. I could make out its small form moving in and out of the dim light. It was almost like it belonged to the darkness, more at home here than I ever could be. My instincts screamed at me to run, yet a strange pull kept me from simply abandoning it. I turned a corner and found myself on a narrow street lined with brick buildings. A flickering neon sign buzzed above a nearby diner, casting an eerie glow. I felt the tug of desperation as I ducked inside the doorway, dragging the creature in with me. The air inside was warm and heavy, a stark contrast to the cold outside. "Stay quiet," I whispered to the creature, though I wasn't sure if it understood. It blinked up at me with those wide, reflective eyes, and I felt a strange sense of understanding pass between us. I crouched behind a counter, my heart still pounding. I could see through the dingy window, catching glimpses of police flashing lights moving past outside. I needed a plan. This wasn't just a chase, it was becoming something far more complicated. As I scanned the diner, hoping for a way to escape or hide longer, my eyes landed on an open door at the back. A flickering light spilled from within, illuminating a narrow corridor. If I could reach that door, I might find an exit or at least a chance to do some thinking. I cautiously made my way toward it, the creature now trailing just behind me. I pushed the door open, wincing at the creaking hinges. The light flickered, revealing a small storage room cluttered with boxes and old kitchen supplies. It smelled of stale grease, but I took a deep breath and stepped inside. As I peered around, my heart sank. There was a window at the back, but it was bolted shut. Desperation clung to me, but my mind scrambled. I rummaged through the boxes, searching for anything that might give me an advantage. When I saw it, a small metal toolbox, partially hidden beneath a stack of old napkins. I opened it, revealing a set of rusty tools, a flashlight, and some crumpled papers. One paper caught my attention. The words written on it sent chills down my spine: Project Rift, Subject Protocols. I turned it over, half expecting to see more. Instead, a faint outline of a diagram sketched on the flip side showed what looked like a series of glowing orbs, resembling the rift. My thoughts raced. Was this related to the creature? To whatever had happened to me back there? The sound of footsteps approaching pulled me back to reality. Someone was coming. This wasn't just my imagination anymore. I shoved the papers in my pocket and motioned for the creature to follow me as I quietly moved back toward the door. I needed to escape now before I was caught in something even bigger than I understood. With the toolbox clutched under my arm, I dashed toward the window, heart racing. I had to find a way out, but the door opened just as I reached it. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, backlit by the harsh light behind them. "Stop right there!" they shouted, and I froze. That was my next problem, and I could feel the weight of it pressing in. What would happen to me now? The figure in the doorway moved forward, silhouette sharpening into focus. It was a woman in a dark uniform, her eyes cutting through the shadows like searchlights. My heart raced as panic flooded my veins. The officer from earlier? No, this was different. "Step away from the toolbox," she commanded. Her voice was stern but laced with an urgency that raised alarm bells in my mind. I hesitated, weighing my options. My grip on the toolbox tightened. Whatever this was about, I couldn't let her take it or me. "Who are you?" I managed to croak out, inching back toward the window behind me. The creature let out a soft, almost whimpering sound, and I glanced down at it. I had to protect it, whatever it was. "Answer my question, and I might let you go," she said, eyes narrowing. "What do you know about Project Rift?" The mention of the project sent a jolt through me. She knew. Somehow, she knew. I don't know anything. "I found this," I said, waving the toolbox as if it was some sort of shield. The officer's expression didn't budge, and the way she looked at me made it clear she didn't tee by my act. I glanced around the cramped space, searching for anything I could use to my advantage. Suddenly, the sound of sirens outside grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. Reinforcements were closing in. I had to act fast. "Listen, I don't have time for this. There's something out there," I blurted out, pointing toward the window. It wasn't a complete lie, the creature was real, and it felt like a trap was closing in around us. Her skepticism remained, though a flicker of uncertainty passed across her face. Then she took a step closer, and my instincts kicked in. My feet were already moving as I lunged for the window. I hit it hard, rattling the frame, but it wouldn't budge. "Stop!" she shouted, and I felt pressure on my shoulder as she grabbed me. My heart surged with adrenaline. I twisted in her grip just as the creature slipped past us, darting toward a corner of the room. "Get back here!" the officer yelled, lunging toward it, but I shoved her away and stumbled to the side. In that instant, I caught a glimpse of the creature. It was clawing at the floor, revealing a trapdoor I hadn't noticed before. Panic surged as I realized that an escape route was just inches away. "Open it!" I yelled, barely processing my own words. The officer hesitated, eyeing both me and the creature as if torn. The sirens blared louder, sending more urgency rushing through me. I took a chance and charged toward the trapdoor. With my foot, I kicked it open just as the officer recovered and lunged at me again. I dove into the darkness below, pulling the creature with me, and my world went black as I plummeted into the unknown. As I hit the ground, a jarring pain shot through my body. I scrambled to my feet, the flashlight from the toolbox flickering to life. I looked back, expecting the officer to follow, but the trapdoor slammed shut above us. "Where are we?" I whispered, glancing around the dimly lit space we landed in. The air felt different, charged with something I couldn't identify. I clutched the toolbox tighter, knowing I'd need whatever was in it, but before I could process anything further, a low growl echoed from the shadows. The creature's eyes glinted in the darkness, and then I realized we weren't alone. Something was waiting for us. I pressed the flashlight against the darkness, scanning for signs of life, or death. The air was thick with dampness and anticipation. I could feel the creature beside me, shifting in the darkness as if sensing the tension before me. The growl came again, deeper this time, crawling up my spine with a chill that left me standing on the edge of panic. Frantic, I swung the beam of light toward the source, praying it was only my imagination. That's when I saw it. Two glowing eyes stared back at me from the shadows, unblinking and predatory. A low, rumbling growl vibrated through the ground, resonating within the core of my body as it seemed to gauge my presence. The creature at my feet shivered, and I felt as if we were trapped in a predator's den. I desperately wished for clarity, for some semblance of understanding, but all I had was fear. Was it a remnant of the rift, an experiment gone terribly wrong? I had to think. The toolbox felt heavy in my hand, and a flicker of inspiration jolted me. Maybe the contents inside could help me. I turned it over and began rummaging through the items while keeping the flashlight aimed at those ominous eyes. The creature beside me whined softly, as if warning me of my reckless exploration. Finally, my fingers wrapped around the cold metal of a crowbar. I hefted it in my hand, a flimsy weapon, but I felt slightly reassured by it. With every heartbeat echoing in my ears, I faced the glowing eyes again, forcing myself to stand tall. "What do you want?" I shouted into the void, my voice cracking under pressure. The growl morphed into a snarl, the two eyes shifting forward from the shadows. "Stay back!" I yelled, swinging the crowbar at the open air. It wasn't directed at anything but a fear that had wrapped around me like a noose. But when I swung, some unseen tension broke. The air shifted, almost electrifying around me. The eyes blinked, and for a heartbeat, the feeling of being prey solidified as terror clutched at my throat while the creature seemed to vanish. Taking my chance, I turned to run, pushing down the corridors that branched away from where the shadows lurked. I could hear my breath racing, the pounding of my heart almost drowning out the whispers that felt like they were alive all around me. They echoed in the same cadence as the sounds I heard in the apartment building, but then, a light flickered at the end of a corridor I hadn't noticed before, a soft glow, beckoning me with the promise of escape. I hesitated only a moment before sprinting toward it. Behind me, the growl had ceased, but the shadows felt alive, thick with the weight of unspoken threats. The promise of that light pulled me forward, urging me to move faster. As I neared the light source, I halted abruptly at a massive door, paint peeling and rusty hinges creaking, but the glow seeped from under it, illuminating symbols that mirrored those from the box in my apartment. I knew these symbols weren't mere designs, they told a story, one rooted deep in the mythos of the building's history. I placed my hand on the door, feeling an almost electric buzz pulsing through. "Let me through!" I shouted. The glow intensified, filling my vision until I felt like I could burst into flame. The reality of where I stood seemed to rip apart, like a taut thread pulled too far. Then a voice, commanding yet gentle, resonated, "Only those seeking truth may pass." I gasped, the sound not coming from anywhere and everywhere all at once. It felt familiar, like hearing the echo of my own mistakes, or perhaps the fear of shaping what I had stumbled upon. "Just tell me what happened. What is the rift? Where am I?" But the door remained silent, the glow dimming, pulling back as if to test my resolve. My hands trembled, and in that moment of uncertainty, I felt the weight of shadows gathering, tightening around me. Whatever lay behind that door could either reveal everything or seal my fate entirely. With trembling hands, I pushed against the door. The slightest creak echoed as it swung open, and I stepped into the illuminated space a sprawling chamber filled with grotesque machines and remnants of forgotten experiments. Papers fluttered like trapped birds in the chaotic air, whispering secrets that should never have been shared. The moment I stepped inside, the intensity in the air shifted. I sensed something shift behind me. The creature hovered in the threshold, its presence grounding me. "You're not alone," I whispered softly. I turned to scan the chamber, the walls covered with the symbols I'd seen, but they pulsated with energy, as if they were alive. I understood then that the issue was larger than myself, it was a connection to something primal that transcended my understanding. The feeling of being watched returned, a sense that maybe this space stretched into another realm entirely. "Do I have to find the answers?" I breathed, my heart still racing from the rush of fear that had engulfed me. "Your choices ripple through time," the voice echoed once more. "But know this, some truths are meant to stay hidden." With those words hanging in the air, I felt a deep sense of foreboding lacing through my gut. The glow from the wall dimmed as shadows began to creep from the corners of the room. An unmistakable realization washed over me: I couldn't escape entirely. The influence of the past mirrored in the present, intertwining like so many strings connecting back to whatever had begun 5 years ago. I had stumbled into a timeline I didn't fully understand, facing forces that remained nameless. As I stood there, caught between past and future, I realized, the questions would always linger. Perhaps that was the true purpose of this nightmare. And in that moment, I sank deep into uncertainty, because I knew whatever happened next, they would come for me. The darkness wouldn't let go that easily.